Good evening and welcome to your Friday night podcast live here on Four Lads Had a Dream. My name's Andrew. I'm joined tonight by my very favourite podder, Andrew. So how are you doing, man? It feels like it's been a while. You've been on the podcast more than me recently. So yeah, how's everything going on this lovely Friday night?
Have I? I mean, that's not saying. I'm saying a lot worse about your attendance than it is about my attendance. I mean, I think the last time I was
I'm
on was
just
before. I was on once last week. That's not a high for me. That's a bang average week of podcasting. But as a whole, yeah, good. A sunny Friday afternoon. And the Jers are back this weekend. So what's more what more can you ask for? This is brilliant.
absolutely sun shining. Rangers are back. We did a statement today as well, which we'll get to.
I love it when we do a
Um,
statement.
Always fantastic. We're going to touch on the news that was obviously discussed in length on Wednesday because it was just breaking then. But Andrew, we discussed briefly before we came on. Tav announced that this is going to be his last season at Rangers. He will be leaving the club at the end of the season. Um, from my personal perspective, while I will genuinely always be grateful for Tav, all the service that he's given us, and responsible for a good number of good memories that I have following Rangers. I think from a pragmatic, objective point of view, it's probably a season or two overdue. If you wanted to be ruthless about it, um, but nonetheless, I think he will go in highest regards. I think over time the bad will always outweigh the goods. And yeah, he took Rangers to a European final, and when everything that happened in 2012, I didn't ever think I'd see Rangers in a European final again in my lifetime. I thought that was going to be the last one that I'd seen in 2008. So the fact that we did get back there, in no small part thanks to his work during that campaign, because he finished the top scorer, not for us, in the Europa League that season. Um, is just one of the many things that I think he's contributed to, and I think those will be the memories that come more to the fore once he's left Rangers. I think that's inevitable. I think it's been a common refrain that I don't think folk will really know what they have lost until it's gone with Tav. Everything that he brings. But Andrew, I mean, as I was, we were discussing before we came on live, he's effectively been your Rangers captain. The entire time for your, most of your adult life, following Rangers. So, yeah, your thoughts, feelings on Tav and the news as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been alive since 2002, and not really being cognizant for a lot of the kind of last hurrah before, financial difficulties, and then as you said, the administration and the third division, and the journey back up. I think it was, a very difficult season before Tav came in. A kind of realization of we can't just keep coasting and expect to get all the way back up. We get found out by uh, a good Hearts team for that level, a good Hibs team for that level, and it was a step too far. I feel if we'd managed to get past Motherwell in that playoff, then we would have had a significant struggle ahead of us back in the Premiership.
I would say
Um,
on that as well. I mean, that Motherwell, double header was a real chastening. It was a
oh
mark of
yeah,
exactly how far we still had to go at that point as a club.
yeah, and obviously that was with an interim caretaker, Jim McCall,
Yeah.
as the manager at that point in time. So when that season finishes, you have an exodus of players, that the interim coaching staff, players that you'd banked on for that season, Lee McCulloch being all through that kind of journey back up. Even players like Darren McGregor at that point in time, who I think was the player of the year that season, was let
He
go.
was.
Um, and you get the Mark Warburton kind of revolution of Rangers, coming in with David Weir, and bringing in almost immediately Martin Waghorn and James Tavernier. Tav, since then, he always was kind of an electric player for me. I loved seeing him attack. It was part of that time period in football where wing backs became somewhat more prevalent in the way that football is played, the kind of tactical overhaul of the game that we love now. You think of like Trent Alexander-Arnold coming to the forefront, Kyle Walker really starting to make their money and their impact on the game, and Tav was no different, bombing up and down the flank, getting involved in attack. I mean, it's a guy that's got 292 goal involvements in 562 games. I believe the stat was. So like a guy that was not struggling to put the biscuit in the basket, as to use an ice hockey phrase. But even this season, I know we've talked about Tav and games where he's coming on as a sub still, and second to
Mhm.
Chimity, ironically, in our goals tally in the league. So there's still life there, but I think as we're talking about what's coming in the summer and what's we're looking at ahead, we need to start planning for a future without Tav. I think this was something we had said for the last 2 years. You need to start planning for
Yeah.
a future without Tav, and this is now the point where it has been confirmed. You'll go with all the well wishes for me in the world. You think back to Connor Goldson, the season where we thought this is a season too far for Connor Goldson. He's
Mhm.
left. He's playing with the Limassol. But you don't think of the bad days with Goldson now. You think of all the good things. Think of that
Exactly.
55 season, that incredible goal, anti-goal record, I suppose you could call it. 13 goals in the league campaign. Um, you think of the good moments, and I think that's what will
Yeah.
happen with Tav. As you said, I mean, I was on TikTok in my lunch, and I seen all of James Tavernier's goals for Rangers, and it was at that point in time I went, how long can you have TikToks up for? It was a 20.5 minute TikTok. That was surprising. But yeah, a guy that's worn the armband for the majority of my cognizant life, and scoring big goals against Dortmund, Leipzig, taking us to a European final, which is, I mean, as you said, 2008 in Manchester. I was 6, so
Yeah.
my parents made the journey, and I watched parts of it at home on the TV with my gran. But I was sitting at poolside in Greece for the Leipzig game, watching it on a perfectly legitimate stream.
Hmm.
So
Definitely.
legitimate that the Fort Mob notification came through before the goal. To which I went, holy shit, we're now one each on tied in aggregate, and it's like 80 minutes left to play. So
Hmm.
lots of great memories for Tav, and as everyone seems to be saying, if he goes with an extra trophy with him, then that'll ride him off into the sunset.
Yeah, I think it will be that case that, as you say, with the Golson thing as well, we'll always come back to that. And what I will say about Tav is that, despite the fact that he's not a starter, I don't think should be a starter now. Like, we've got these last 5 games coming up, which we will talk about. But for me, he's not the starter in any of those games. I think the starter is Sterling, as long as he's fit. But he can still play a part, because I'll come back to that Aberdeen game where, which was in itself a roller coaster of a game, but I was watching it with some non-Rangers supporters, and when um, when he lined up for the free kick, like, I'm talking to this guy who has no idea about Scottish football in general, let alone what Tav can do. It's like, is he really going to go for that? I'm like, oh yeah, he'll score from here. Like, possibly I'd had one or two refreshing alcoholic beverages, and was
Libations.
maybe, yeah, indeed, was maybe speaking with a bit of overconfidence. But then he, comes up and absolutely buries it, and you're like, "See, I told you."
I was going to say
Um,
Dutch courage, but with this kind of talk, maybe not a great reference to make.
it was German courage in any event. So,
Well, I suppose
which
there's that, isn't
is
there?
a different thing,
Mm.
nonetheless. Yeah, he can still contribute 100%. I think, you know, ideally for me, he goes out on a high. And yeah, as the years go by, it's certainly the memories will be there. He'll get a testimonial, and rightly so. I think deservedly so. Very few players can lay claim to that. Certainly, with some of the turnover in players that we have had throughout the
Yep.
seasons, it feels like it's rarer and rarer that you'll ever see that kind of thing happening. So yeah, with all my best
We're not
wishes,
getting a
we'll go.
Not Rafael Fernandez testimonial. That's not happening. For all
It
of two
feels unlikely.
appearances he made for Rangers. Yep.
Yeah. You might as well talk about the Joe Dodo testimonial, you know.
Oh, we live on Partick Thistle. The streets will never forget the Partick Thistle days.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to some other news that came out today. And here was me struggling to think of anything to talk about tonight. But Scottish football never lets you down. The story came out in the Ranger Review initially that Celtic were going to deny us an allocation to Parkhead for the reverse fixture. And unsurprising, really, I think, given the people who are in charge. I think it is clear that the team across the city are nervous about the run-in and will be looking to get every advantage they can get. But what was nice is, as I was reading about this, Rangers' statement came out, and I'd just like to read that for you in full, Andrew, because I think it's worth reading, so we have the appropriate
Please do.
Yesterday, Celtic FC informed us that they will not provide any tickets for the forthcoming game to our supporters unless we agree not to allocate tickets to members of the Union Bears. Interesting, because I believe we made a similar request of them about the Green Brigade getting tickets to Ibrox. And
how did that go again?
Inexplicably, they managed to find themselves in the ground. Gosh, I wonder how that happened. And I will also note that that's a group that's been banned by them. The Union Bears haven't been banned by us. We still think they're perfectly upstanding-ish. We even encouraged, donations to their TIFO not long ago on the club WhatsApp. So
this is true.
They're certainly, a fan group that we, as a club, are keeping close. Unlike their supporters club, who have only recently been let back in. Again, who can say why that happened? So, Rangers, we have firmly rejected those conditions and referred the matter to the SPFL board. Rangers are fully committed to safety at football matches, and we have been clear in condemning the actions of certain individuals. On the 8th of March, we have been attempting to work with Celtic to mitigate any security concerns for the upcoming match. At a crucial stage of the season, the removal of away supporters from one of the defining fixtures of the competition would introduce a clear and material sporting imbalance, but also set precedents with potentially significant consequences for the league in future seasons. I think it's worth noting, some of the language here is considered. We are talking about sporting integrity here, which is one of my very favourite Scottish football phrases to use, because it's got a history in this league, and especially with this club as well. It's been deployed in the opposite direction this time, but it's a fair point. Why should this one suddenly be refused? The game is an opportunity for Scottish football to demonstrate that it can respond constructively to recent events. It should be a showcase occasion and a chance to rebuild confidence in how matches of this nature are managed. We want what supporters of both clubs expect, a match decided on the pitch with both sets of supporters present. We would ask the SPFL board to uphold the integrity of the competition, enforce the rules, and ensure that the agreement in place between both clubs is honoured. What I really like about this is that it is not evocative or emotional language. It's very clear, very considered, very specific in the wording. And I think that's very important, because when we talk about sporting integrity, when we talk about the SPFL upholding the rules, we are doing that for a reason, because the rules state, unless there is due cause, unless there is a justifiable reason, you cannot refuse supporters entrance to the ground, especially if previous precedence has been set, especially if the other club has allowed fans in. It is not surprising to me that Celtic have decided to go down this road, but it is, I think, a sign of their fear levels right now, that they can't even countenance the presence of 800 Rangers fans in a 60,000 seat stadium, because apparently that will be too dangerous. I've seen the police present. I've seen what fans have to go through to get into that ground on a match day. it is not like you've got free reign. You know, you're kettled in, you're under police escort the entire time you're there. The conditions for the fans, arguably for both sides, are not exactly pleasant, and certainly not an opportunity for a lot of rampage and rioting or anything like that to go on. So, not surprising for me, Andrew, but yeah, good to see the club, I think, taking a good, strong line against it, and I'm happy with the statement in terms of the language that's been used here.
I mean, I'm not surprised that Celtic have taken this stance. I mean, I would too if one of my fans get karate kicked similarly to the Bundesliga logo after the last game. I mean, that top quality. I mean, I know everyone was talking about Cobra Kai being the big Karate Kid reboot. I think we've got a new rival up and coming. But as a whole, yeah, it feels like it's coming from a position of justification from Rangers. Like we're just saying, oh, well, hold on a minute. If the rules state, then this is what's gonna have to happen. I mean, it, it does just scream. What can we get? What can we get? We need this. Well, let's just throw the toys out the pram then.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is what they do. I mean, if we've seen it with officiating, we've seen headlines, we've seen post game interviews, everything. This is just another in a long line of cries from that club, and I hope that the SPFL board will treat it with the the responsibility that it deserves. This is a crucial game in the final home stretch of the season, and fixtures permitting and games and results permitting could be the final nail in a Celtic title challenge.
Yep.
And more incredibly, potentially could push us over the line if all things go incredibly great for us in other games and in our own games. So it doesn't surprise me that this kind of action has been taken. I liked our statement. I think the club, gave a point of view from themselves as well as from a fan's point of view. And I think that's important because, as we've seen in so many statements since the 49ers group and Andrew Kavanagh has come in, is about trying to rebuild that kind of connection from the fans to the board, the fans to the pitch. There has been a lot of negativity about the way the club has been run and the way that under previous stewardship, people in charge have seen Rangers fans as the problem, which is incredible given the fact that the club that they are running is for us, and they're seeing us as the problem. But under this new ownership and invigorated stance on what our support can be and is, there's a togetherness, and I think that was reflected in the statement, and that is important for me, because we've seen it in statement after statement. But again, it's that same no. If you're mentioning Rangers, you're mentioning all of us. So yeah, I like that.
What's, I think, the most important thing to note here is that ostensibly this should have nothing to do with what happened in the top quarter final, because we fulfilled the obligations that were imposed upon us by the SFA for that fixture. If it was up to Rangers, then we'd have had the same allocation as we do in the leagues. It would have been policed, hopefully accordingly. Maybe the police should have done a bit better. No,
Celtic could have done much worse, in my opinion, but that's
correct.
another point
Yes. Exactly. Again, speaking purely on behalf of myself, Andrew speaking on behalf of himself, not on behalf of four lads or anything like that. From our point of view, from my point of view, let me be clear. Policing was fucking abysmal when it came to the to the Scottish Cup quarter final. But if it had been Rangers' decision, then it would have been a different approach, one that was familiar with the police. Maybe they would have been better at it. Who can say? But it is always going to come down to that this club will always try and pull over whatever little advantage they can get. For me, this is a real opportunity for Jim Gillespie to go out and CEO really good. or chairman really good. I forget which title he has, chairman or CEO. Anyway,
He's not the
as
chairman. Kavanagh's the chairman.
yeah, there we go. It's a CEO. So as a senior figure within Rangers, it's a good opportunity for him to, you know, ensure that this is backed up. I think it's a good statement, but it needs to be backed up with actions here as well. If they become intransigent, then we say, okay, well then no fans for you. The next Old Firm come next season. You know, two can play at that game, and this is how this happened in the past before. We reduced the allocation, they remove the allocation entirely. It goes tit for tat. If they ever want to get to a stage where they can get the full broom loan back, and I believe we are a long way away from that happening right now. But if you're ever going to get back to that kind of stage, then you have to start rebuilding it. If you constantly escalate and have this petty nonsense trying to refuse Rangers access to see their team, to support their team on the way to a title, which, hey, they could win at that ground if things go well, then if you constantly push back on that, then it's only going to go tit for tat. You know, nuclear destruction ends one way. No one wins out of that. Everyone loses. And that's what you're doing. You're ramping up this to a situation where no one can win. Apart from, you know, season ticket renewals are coming up, and that's always going to be good to play to the base if you can shut out big bad Rangers and really stick it
Certainly
to them.
also covers up when you give out some god awful contract extensions. I did like the timeline because there was a lot of ha ha. Tav's been better for Celtic than he has for Rangers. Ha ha ha. Oh, for fuck's sake, why are we giving Forrest a new deal? That was how yesterday kind of went for me.
Yeah. Long-standing servant to the club, deserves the reward, I'm sure. But we're not here to talk about them. No, sir. We're here to talk about Rangers. So,
right.
Listen, it is what it is. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the next few days, but that game's going to come up quickly. And it's going to be very interesting to see what Rangers do to follow it up. Definitely going to be interesting to see how the SPFL respond to it. But
yeah.
Ideally, for me, they shouldn't be allowed in because they've deliberately vandalized our ground. If they want to use this as the excuse, then and they want to get it in early, fine. But ultimately, it's only going to be spiting them. So this will only ever damage them. If they want to do that, fine. We've won the title in front of no fans before. We did win it on grass. It wasn't awarded over email. We can do it again. So, yeah, fine. Bring it on. Let's do it, lads. That's absolutely fine. But let's move on. We have a game, blessedly, this weekend, Andrew. Motherwell, Sunday. Not Saturday, as you seem to think. Yeah. I mean, obviously, other teams will be playing before us. Random supercomputer somehow managed to land on that one, but it's fine. The games need to be played. We know what we have to do. The good news is I think we have some more players back available. I don't think Tur Romans is quite fit enough to start. I think he may make the bench, but we'll have him available. We know that Connor Barron is back in the mix as well. It's really good to have some of these players back because it gives us more of a starting chance. I think when it comes to the starting lineup, I think it pretty much picks itself right now in terms of our strongest players, on paper at least. For me, and I'm going to ask you for yours, Andrew, Butland in goals, Sterling at right back, Migoma probably at left back because I don't think Romans will be fit enough. Giga and Fernandez as your two centre-backs. I think Jaguani and Raskin as the two. And then in front of that, I don't know, maybe Moore and then Asgard. Or maybe you have Moore and Ant-Man. And then in front of that, Chimiti. For me, I think it'd be interesting to do Chimiti and Miowski. I think it would be good to see that. But I don't know. I think the nice thing is we do have a few options now, which certainly we didn't have it earlier on this season. So going to be interesting. But who would you be going with, Andrew? Who do you think are going to be the key players here?
Well, I think you're spot on with the back line. I don't think Tour will be ready for the Motherwell game. And given that the two games after that, I think if we need to sacrifice the Motherwell game, then so be it. Jaden has played a significant amount of minutes for us this year. I think just in a bigger picture for him in his career, this will do him the
Mm.
world of good in the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
4 or 5 years. It's been a real challenging season for us as a club, a real challenging season for him as an individual, being the sole left back under two different managers, two different styles of play, and a carousel door of revolving centre backs. So yeah, massive experience for him, and I think he'll be just fine on that left hand side. I know there's been a lot of people I've seen a lot on Twitter about Magoma being written off and things, but I think it's just because Two Rooms is so brilliant doesn't mean you can't have some positivity for Jaden. So I'd go, yep, Sterling, assuming he is fit, which if I had, the genie's wishes, at least one of them is Sterling being fit.
Hmm.
Um, especially, as we said, something that was officially confirmed, even though we all had that kind of suspicion that AstroTurf pitches and him just don't really work anymore,
We'll
which is
simply
worrying
have to
you.
win it in 4 games instead, mate.
Yeah, we're
Easy as
not
that.
going to Falkirk risking Sterling for the next three
Yeah.
years on one game. So
Hmm.
Dujon, Manny and Nasser and Jaden back four, Jack Butland and goals, obviously. There is so much room for debate, or it depends on what shape you want to see. If you're going to play with Nico and Tochi, who both I think are just going straight for stride.
Yep.
It's the games for some reason, the last couple of games where Tochi seems to have not the best 90 minutes, but in that 90 minutes, he makes three or four key contributions that
Yeah.
ends up in a goal or just kind of kills a period of time where we don't look like we're in the ascendancy, or he grasps it back for us. And that is key when you get into this kind of this running. Nico, as I said, what a guy. His return from the abyss under Russell Martin is incredible, and I wish him a great run in, a great World Cup, because he absolutely deserves it for this season
Mhm.
he's had. So you could do the two central midfielders. I like Tello, I really do. It's one of these strange ones where, you know me, Andrew, I pick a player that maybe not everybody likes, and by not everybody I mean usually nobody likes. Um, my
Hey
Sunday
man,
signed
if
program
he
is there.
starts hitting more of those free kicks again, then
Yeah,
people will come around.
I think he's finding his footing though. This is the thing.
Yeah.
I've said this at the start of the season. I think these kind of players that are Asgard kind of, you know, archetypes fall in the Ajaria to Aribo scale of really talented on the ball, fancy footwork, has no concept of you're not getting that amount of time in Scottish football.
Hmm.
Or you have all the skill, all the talent on the ball, and learns that you need to move it quicker or you need to be
Yeah.
sharper. And then you make it your strength. That's the thing. I think Aribo was a bit, lackadaisical and get caught a few times at the start of his reign,
Yeah.
but then he adjusted and
100%.
became a star. I think Tello has slowly started to shift to the Aribo side of that spectrum. He's got all the attributes of a player that can be a success. He's tall, he's comfortable with the ball at his feet, he can play a killer pass, he's got a good shot. We've seen him hit dead balls. And just that physicality in terms of height. I mean, he does useful in corners, up the park and back down the park, as we know with our set piece coach now. It's all about defence and attack at set pieces. So he's a player that I like. So if you're going to do that, then you have essentially two centre mids and a cam who are a 10 or a second striker, if you want to call that, because he does sit close to a Chermiti or Mijovski, whoever you're going to start as the lone striker. Which then in itself gives you that rotation to bring on your second striker off the bench. We
Hmm.
know that we're going to be without Ryan Dunn, the dairy, for a while at least. He's decided to not write him off for the rest of the split, which is good. I think that's, if
Yeah.
we can get him back, then that'd be brilliant. Just again for more depth.
Hmm.
Then yeah, I'm not going to say no to more depth. So there's your option. I really like Asgard, and I wouldn't be against, even just for the fact the yard, but without Nadiri for a wee bit of time, keeping a second striker on the bench so you're not risking losing potentially two strikers in one game.
True.
So going a Chermiti, because I think there's something about the guy. I think somebody has told him that every game from now to the end of the season is a big game, and he has just
Yeah.
decided to turn up. So I'd go probably the same as an Asgard with Chermiti, Raskin and Chigwani, Moore, and I'm going to give it to Scoff Olsen.
Okay.
I think, and I've said this from the start, and Scott Olsen has yet to find the same wavelength as some of these players, and I don't think that's because he's worse than them. I think he's trying to plays that don't exactly fall to them. I think we've
Yeah.
seen it with like the Chermiti overhead kick goal. Nobody lofts that ball in for a normal level. That's advanced thinking of sorts. I think his assists and his duels, his chances created shows there's a player there. I think the week away that we've just had will get that togetherness. I'm hoping we'll finally see that click with
Mm.
Scott Olsen finding that role to link in with what you see in the left for Moore and what Asgard and Chermiti can use. I think he could be the asset that we really need to get this title over the line. And as I said, that week away could have been perfect just to get him in sync with the rest of them. That being said, you've got Oliver Antman who's came on off the bench in Falkirk and looked superb. JD Kasama, again, yeah, had a couple of goal
Yep.
contributions, I think, at Falkirk as well. Um, Mikey Moore, he's going to continue to be on the left hand side for me. I think his last couple of games hasn't been as sharp as he has been for the majority of the season. But again, if you're going to say that for, I think what he gets subbed off for maybe half time in one of those last two games, something like
Yeah.
that. There's a player that has that X factor, and if we can get that dialed in for this run in, that you have to start him. So I'd say you're going to go Tochi, Raskin, Mikey, Scoff Olsen, Asgard, Chimity.
I think the Scott Olsen one's interesting because I absolutely agree that I don't think he's shown anywhere near what he's capable of. The problem is he's only got 5 games left to show it. If he
Yep.
does do it in these 5 games, if he proves instrumental in this run in, suddenly everyone's going to be really excited to sign him again. But if we continue to see the same performances we've been getting out of him so far, then I mean, it's going to be thanks, man. It was worth a shot, but clearly this
Yeah.
ain't for you.
Oh yeah, I
Which is
think
unfortunate.
it's not been good. It hasn't
No,
been everything we hyped it up to be. I think we were perhaps thinking of 2 or 3 seasons ago, Andreas Scoff
yeah,
Olsen, who we all were hyped about signing, and even then he made his move. It hasn't been the way he would have envisioned it because he has found himself now back at loan at us. Because to not sign for us, you had bigger plans of being a bigger star than what we could have offered him at that time. But he has found himself here. You know, he hasn't hit the ground running. But I think
mhm.
that weekend, that not weekend, the week away in Spain, that weekender in Spain on the
Jolly.
bed on the beds with the boys. No,
Mm.
I think that week away of just getting things dialed in, you know, finessing some of the smaller details in the final third, I think that will help him. I think that's why I'm willing to start him. And if we are seeing more of the same of him, then we can be ruthless and just rely on the depth we have.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Folks, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens for this. I'm excited. It's nice to be excited going into
Yep.
a weekend and not feeling like Rangers will definitely ruin it. Only maybe they'll ruin it. And that's really nice to be in, you know?
God, I hope they
Um,
don't ruin it.
oh, man, I really hope not. No, keep believing, man. Keep believing.
Too
You gotta
right,
have
too
faith.
right.
Yeah, we shall see what happens. Obviously, you can get all the reaction right here at Full Lads, whether you're tuning in on our Twitter page, whether you're watching on YouTube, or even if you're watching on Facebook. I believe that you'll be updated just by subscribing to any of those. So please like, subscribe, become a member as well. If you want to become a member, you can hit the big QR code that's right there, baby. Always in the wrong corner every time. Um, yes, you can absolutely do that. We have, I mean, a plethora of lovely options. Obviously, any of our shows you can watch advert free by becoming a member. Every show that we do is uploaded ad free for your pleasure. And we also have a whole number of shows that are exclusive for members only that are behind the paywall. A truly excellent interview with David Hertz with Rangers legend Willie Matheson, one of the Barcelona Bears. Genuinely, I mean, worth the price of admission alone. It's £1 a month, guys. Come on, sign up. Sign up. Just do it. Just do it. If you don't, that's fine. any support that you can offer us is truly phenomenal. Any support that you guys show us is always greatly appreciated, and we thank you so much for always tuning in, supporting us, following us. Honestly, you guys lift us up. So thank you all so very much for doing so. After this, you can always tune in to look at. I think it's actually just 2 cherries, but I believe originally it was Kenny and Stevie trying to comment on the Rangers versus Hearts game, but I think they're like bright reds now at the end of it. So not a good result, unfortunately, for the ladies, beaten 2-1 by Hearts, but going to be worth it to watch Kenny and Stevie just become apoplectic at them, quite frankly. So please go and tune into that afterwards. And yeah, as ever, thank you all so very much, Andrew. And thank you as well for joining me on a lovely Friday night. There's beautiful weather out there, and you're sitting inside talking about Rangers with me. So appreciate that, my friend.
Of course. What else would you want to do on a Friday night like this? Yeah, as always, thank you for having me on, Andrew. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. So happy the Gels are back this weekend. A long time coming and a long road ahead with important games one after another. But first of 3 important games, some real important games. Middle fixture between them and Hearts this weekend. So let's see what happens by the time we kick off, and then let's see what happens by close of play on Sunday evening and reassess from there ahead of our next week of podcasts.
Indeed. Folks, as ever, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Please continue to follow us. We'll have plenty of reaction over the weekend from everything, and then we're back on Monday with the usual crew to go over the result and start looking ahead to the next game. 5 cup finals to go, Rangers. Come on, let's do it. Keep believing, folks. Lovely talking to you as ever, and until we talk to you again, goodbye for now.
The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.